Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's episode 275. We're recording this live on March 9th, 2023. This is Human Factors Cast. I'm your host, Nick Rome. I'm joined today by Barry Kirby.
Hello.
Hey there. Our internet checks out tonight, hopefully.
Yay.
Mine does. Anyway, on tonight's episode, we'll delve into the topic of the AI revolution, identify 8 indicators that suggest it might be spiraling out of control. Later, we'll be addressing some of the inquiries from our community, including whether AI will replace UX researchers, negotiating for a salary increase in under 60 days, and coping with the feeling of being lost as a researcher. But first, got some programming notes, community update. Hey, Human Factors Minute is live now, y'all. Go listen. Go have a listen to that. If you haven't already, I guess some 20 something episodes are live now, and tomorrow on the 10th you'll get another episode already, and then you'll get another episode on the 20th, and then another one on the 30th. You see how that works? It's great. Also, I want to share with you all that this show is community supported. If you can, please consider supporting us on Patreon. Just $1 gets you in the door and gets you access to a whole bunch of cool things. In fact, we're now playing around with our pre-show and our post-show, where we're going to have our Patreon members call in and discuss some topics with us. So that's cool. We tried it out tonight with some of the people from the lab. It's a great thing. So if you want to get involved that way, you can. Like I said, $1 gets you in the door. You can mess with our show notes too, so that's always fun. Hey Barry, before we start tonight, I want to jump in and just ask you, what's the latest over at 1202?
So at 12:02, we've got a new episode up, which is an interview with Martin Bromley, OBE, who is the person who founded the Clinical Human Factors Group over here in the UK. And he gives us a whole bunch of insight into not only the work he's doing in setting it up and the reasons why, his story around how he lost his wife through what should have been a routine operation, and unfortunately she passed away due to a lack of understanding within the operating theatre, or lack of communication within the operating theatre. That's a fairly well-known story, but actually with the interview he did with us, he shared a bunch of other stuff, a lot about how he got interested in human factors right at the start of his flying career, because he's a pilot, and there's some other stuff in there that he talks about. But the biggest interesting thing that we need to take note of is he challenged us as a human factors community to up our game in how we sell human factors, how we tell people what it's about, rather than just assuming that they do. So, challenge taken.
Yeah, go listen to that episode for a little bit more context. For now, why don't we go ahead and get into the reason you're all here? That's right. This is the part of the show all about human factors news. Barry, what's the story this week?
So this week, the same as it was last week, is about the 8 signs that AI revolution is spinning out of control. So the AI revolution is expanding rapidly, with new tools and products emerging that use artificial intelligence and machine learning to enhance the user experience. However, this unregulated field has the potential to be hugely disruptive to various industries and even our way of life. This article highlights the 8 warning signs that the robot revolution could get very messy. Big corporations are using AI to replace various professions, such as coders, voice actors, and even journalists. Additionally, AI is being used to automate the justice system and write screenplays. Surveillance systems are integrating AI, creating super smart spying apparatus. Furthermore, the AI arms race is starting, with tech giants feverishly developing their own respective AI tools. While the benefits of AI seem evident, the concerns about their potential drawbacks and limitations are becoming increasingly relevant. There is a significant role here for human factors practitioners in this field, because it's essential to ensure that the AI is designed, developed, and implemented responsibly, ethically, and in consideration of the impacts of human factors, including safety, performance, and usability. So, Nick, is your AI getting out of control?
Yes.
We know the answer to that.
Yes, it is. Well, let me first preface this by saying my boss has described me as high on AI. So there's that. But my reaction to this is that yeah, you can look at it as it getting out of control, but there's also, to me, this is just a bunch of new tools that we use for our jobs. And I think the danger comes from trying to replace humans at their jobs when these things are doing a half-assed job of what a human can do. Like these things, to be clear, should be used to enable humans to do their jobs better. Um, so I mean, you're absolutely right. The integration of AI into various industries, it needs to be considered from a human factors perspective. But I think this can actually increase creativity in a lot of ways. I mean, I've been able to explore a lot of things for the podcast and some offshoot side projects very quickly and iterate on them very quickly, thanks to a lot of these AI tools that have been coming out here. This co-writing software like ChatGPT or anything like that, they can actually provide you with new perspectives and ideas that you might not have actually thought about before coming to it, right? And even from like a creative perspective too, you can see like give me an absurd story, and it'll just give you like something that completely goes against the norm, right? Because that's how those models are based. I do think that you're right. The unchecked integration of this AI into some of these industries can threaten jobs and accuracy and quality of life if the people responsible for those roles decide to fire the people in those seats because they feel like that AI can now do their job, or the accuracy or quality of some work is sacrificed because the people in those seats are trusting the automation, the artificial intelligence in those situations more inherently than they probably should. Right now, it's a supervisory control thing that we should be in, a mode that we should be in to review this content that the AI is spitting out, rather than taking it at face value and just moving with it. Right. Um, I think there's also the talk about the AI arms race in terms of tech giants, but I think there's also an AI literal arms race between countries and what kind of dangerous implications that could mean for us. Eh, I kind of don't want to talk about that right now, but that is just a point that I wanted to bring up. And lastly, for my initial thoughts, wow, we need a more cautious and responsible approach to this technology. And I've been saying this for weeks. Every time we talked about AI, this technology is growing and just proliferating into our daily lives at a rate that is unsustainable from an ethical perspective and um, just a ethical tech perspective. I mean, think about all the laws and policy that should be in place to protect people from things like deep fake revenge porn, or using somebody's voice without their permission. So I mean, there's this tech is getting insane, and we don't have the policy to back it up today. Barry, what are your thoughts on this article?
I'm not that bothered. No, I think with
Great.
I think with any technical revolution, and this for me, it is a technical revolution. It's a step change. It's going to change. Things are absolutely going to change, but it's also the Pandora's box. You're not. You cannot put it back in the box, and why would we really want to? So yes, as with any technical revolution, there's going to be a change in jobs. There absolutely is going to be, but jobs and whilst jobs will disappear, and I fully think that there are jobs that are going to disappear because of this, other jobs will be created. Um, there will just be different jobs, and we'll sort of see how that goes. Though there is an argument there as well that actually, will the overall workload go down? Therefore, there will be less jobs overall, and there might be, and that sets us some different challenges. But for me, fundamentally, when you look at the jobs that AI is doing at the moment, we've talked a lot about ChatGPT and them sort of tools. They are largely looking at what pattern matching, repetitive, formulaic tasks, stuff that would usually take us a bit of time. We're able to stitch things together. So actually, you're saving time, you're saving effort, and there's a level there is actually we're doing stuff that we never did before as well. So that's really quite cool. Um, I like the comment around what we said about AI writing code. I mean, why it's a surprise that AI can write better code and more consistent code than we can. It shouldn't actually be that much of a shock, because code exists for us to be able to translate our what it is that we want a computer to do into a mode that the computer understands. Therefore, if the AI can understand what we want because we've told it, it can generate better code than we can, because it's already there. It's already a computer. So it is surprising just how good it is at doing it, but we possibly shouldn't be that surprised. I think what worries most people is because it's thrown a level of uncertainty there. It's thrown that level of, right, what happens next? What is it? How is it going to affect me? We've talked quite a lot about how this positively affects what we're doing. I've been using some of this stuff to do, test questionnaires and do developer personas and things like that. But what does this mean? I mean, some of the big stories we've heard around sort of like teachers, students generating essays, essay content through ChatGPT, and then people go, well, if the students are not going to write proper essays anymore, then that's terrible. Actually, you know what that means is that the essay is possibly not the best tool for doing assessment anymore. But then the flip side is true, where teachers have then been using ChatGPT to say, right, here's an essay that's been written, mark it for me, please. So actually, flip side is true. But I think at a really fundamental level, and this has come more to light for me with my family becoming more arts focused, is we talked about like the AI generating its own art and things like that, and perhaps it not being as distinguishable from human art, etc., etc. We're going to have to really reflect on the value of the human intervention, or the literally human generated stuff, and what that means. Because whilst AI can generate nice pictures, it doesn't generate a backstory into that. It doesn't have a journey. It doesn't have the story of the inspiration behind the generation of art, which is only something I've come to appreciate, I think, in the past couple of years, because of my daughter doing, well, both my daughters and my son doing art in various different ways. And so I've learned a lot more about that. But if you just want a nice picture on the wall, then maybe the AI generated art is for you. If you want something that's had the heart, soul, blood, sweat, and tears go into it, that's when you pay the big bucks for the human generated stuff. So I think we both had some quite large reactions to that. Looking at both
This
different.
relatively short story, like this.
Oh,
I mean, like
go on.
just to recap really quick, this story, this article is is kind of an anomaly for the type of thing that I usually like to put in the top stories. But I just knew that we could have a field day with it. So really, this story is just a slideshow of, you know, 8 different industries in which AI is performing well, or I guess it's maybe surprising, shocking, whatever you want to call it. There's a lot that we can go with for this. And just to recap the article that we're actually talking about here, right? So the 8 examples that they bring up. ChatGPT passes a coding exam, right? That's kind of what we're referencing when we talk about AI being able to code. A judge uses ChatGPT in a legal case. So
Oh,
it
I was going to say,
yeah,
let's jump on that one because that's a great example, I think.
sure.
Because we've already talked about the coding one. So this is when the judge has used ChatGPT to render a judgment. What he hasn't done, I don't believe, because I think he'd already determined what the output should be. So they knew that guilty, blah 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 blah, and so he already come to the decision, and then asked ChatGPT to render the decision text.
Right.
So what the argument should be, and all that sort of stuff. Now, when you consider looking at that, actually at that point, the development of a decision is largely formulaic. So in the UK, as an example, so in a previous life, I used to be a magistrate, and you used to get the way that you, once you come to the decision that somebody was guilty or not guilty or whatever, then there was a formula there largely for, right, what's the punishment, and it was depending on what you did, you got range from a slap on the wrist all the way through to prison, and so the amount you went to prison for example, would then depend on whether you pled guilty, how early you pled guilty. So if you pled guilty the first opportunity, you got a third off your sentence, right? Because you've saved the amount of time and effort in the court. The victims haven't had to come and give evidence, so you've saved them that because that's not a nice thing, really. So because you've ironically been sort of considerate, more consideration would have been not to do it in the first place. But because you've been considerate, you get a third off your sentence. So, but then all of that, the way it's structured, is structured, and there's a book there that shows you how to pull that together. So the way that you put this together goes back to what I said in my remarks. It's formulaic. So there's actually no reason at all why this decision shouldn't be in the first run developed by ChatGPT, because actually it might ensure that all the elements are there. So if ChatGPT knows what all the different elements are that need to be within a decision, it can check that they are there. Or if they don't have, if it doesn't have the certain element, it can bring back a query. So I think that's quite powerful, and it might actually make for potentially better law.
It could, and you're absolutely right. I think in the case of this specific court case, they were looking at sort of it was concerning an autistic child's medical insurance situation, and you're right. Um the decision was rendered using ChatGPT. It wasn't necessarily making the judgment, although it's not that far off, like you were just describing, to imagine a system that is making that type of judgment, because right now we actually have artificial intelligence systems that are being used in conjunction with doctors to make diagnoses.
Hmm.
And both situations, both judicial and medical, have implications for somebody's life.
Yeah.
So, I think it's not that far fetched to say, what if you incorporate it? Because then even judges have bias, right?
Yeah.
And so can you then get around bias by introducing AI? Well, then you have to make sure that it doesn't have algorithmic bias incorporated into the code or the model that it's using. Make it as objective as possible. But then it can maybe render those judgments in a more fair and consistent way, where it's not based on the color of your skin or the the circumstances around the whatever happened, right? I mean, I think there's a lot
Yeah.
to be said here that it could actually make judge
There's
rulings more fair.
there's definitely going to be a level there that you could, because I mean there is a certain level of humanity within judging your peers, because that's effectively what even a judge, or whether, so we used to sit as because we were magistrates, you'd sit as a bench of three people, because you, in a view to try and equal out some of that bias. um but you could quite easily see that somebody could run the AI side of things on a decision and say, right, the completely fair, the da 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 decision should be this. But actually the judge might turn around and say, well, actually I want to give a lesser, um a smaller prison sentence, or a lesser thing, or a greater one, depending on particular circumstances of that case. And it might be that it was, say, an assault against a uniform, but personnel, which will render something higher. But even that you would actually take into account. So, but might be personal circumstances, might be anything. So there is that element of, where would you want humane judgment put into place? Which I guess does that set it aside from the doctor's one, when you where actually you want the best solution you can possibly get, and not have any sort of bias or thing from the human judgment, because it, when you've got illness or something, it could literally be anything, and the AI might throw something in there that says, actually, you haven't thought of this. um
Right.
and maybe the judgment then is then afterwards.
Yeah. So just to get back to the article, right? Like this thing was relatively short. And we've already dug into one of these eight. So again, using AI to code, using AI in the rendering of judicial decisions. The next one here, using AI to write screenplays. After that, replacing voice actors. And if you stuck around with us last week in the pre-show, I showed you how I actually emulated Barry's voice. Didn't quite sound like him, but it was close enough to where, you know, if I needed a pickup in one of the things that Barry records for Human Factors Minute, I could do so. Um, Replacing journalists. In fact, CNET got a lot of heat for this because a lot of their articles were actually, they've been quietly publishing these AI generated articles, and so without disclosing that. And it's replacing journalists in some ways, right?
Yeah.
So there's that one. Keeping
So
on here,
what would be
yeah.
really interesting with that is to know if they're willing to release the numbers as to whether their numbers went up and their customer satisfaction went up or down because of it.
They've
That would be a
I would imagine that they did, because they've flat out
if they're
said that
doing
they're
it.
going to continue doing it. They're just going to disclose that it's an AI written article now.
Mm,
And then you also have the stock market, which a lot of AI is trying to solve right now. Because if you can get predictive analytics about stocks, then you're going to make money.
mhm,
So that's 7. 8 is use, or I guess slideshow 8. So number 7, using AI to spy on people. We talked a little bit about this on the show a while back with using facial recognition in various settings, and that's kind of what's going on here. There's a lot of especially that in Russia, there's AI that's being integrated into these massive security camera networks to basically make it so that there's no place to hide from
yep,
Big Brother. Then the last piece here is the AI arms race between the tech giants, I should specify, because you have sort of Microsoft buying OpenAI, integrating ChatGPT with Bing. And then you also have Google that has their Bard, that's Google's solution to this. And then you also have Facebook, who has Lambda. And so you have a bunch of different tech giants who have all these solutions that they're probably trying to position themselves to launch in a way that's going to get capture most of the market share for these similar type of human natural language processing based models. And so that's that's the article in a nutshell. And just coming back to human factors 101, right? Human factors engineering plays an absolutely critical role when you try to look at the safe and effective design of these AI systems. And really, that can be evidenced by there's a whole technical group devoted to human AI robot teaming. And basically, what they're looking at in that technical group is looking at basically having humans in the loop, including other either AI or robots or both, um, and having those embodied AI agents, and then anything involving teaming, working together between those elements, right? So that's basically what that group is looking at, meaning that there's some human, and then there's some agent, either a robot or an AI, that needs to be working together. And that's why I think ChatGPT, we talked about this in our ChatGPT episode, where it exemplifies UX, and I think we had some criticisms about that, but it is one of the most easily understood interfaces where you're just talking to it and it
mhm.
responds to you using an amalgamation of human language for the most average answer, unless you specify otherwise. But I think that should summarize the article for everybody. And I like I said, it's just slideshows with a little bit of context, but there's so much that we could
Yeah.
talk about here that I don't know, we really dug into that judge story. Where do you want to go next, Barry?
Well, I guess just to follow a bit about what you're saying around how this stuff is developed. So it's worth highlighting that the CIHF, the China Institute of Economics and Human Factors, have produced guidance on the use of AI. Now, specifically here, they produced guidance for AI in healthcare, because that's one of the bits that we mentioned, and they basically come up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 main areas. I should have written that down before I did it, but fundamentally they're looking at they're highlighting the fact that we should be considering situational awareness about how AI can support rather than erode people's essay. Workload, it's automatically thought that AI would reduce people's workload, but actually in some situations it could increase it. So you've got to be careful on that. Automation bias, which you mentioned earlier. Um, Explanation and trust. People need to be able to trust what they're doing, but be able to dig into any decisions that are made to understand where they come from, should they require it. A bit like what we have when we're looking at maps. When Google plots us a route. Well, we want to know where that comes from. The human AI teaming, that interface between a human operator and the AI operator needs to be solid. Training, it's almost, I mean, we did talk about this in ChatGPT, but also a couple of others, where you've got to be able to operate the system to the best of its ability and to be able to deliver what you want to do. Now, that might involve either a really good HCI, which is my preferred solution, to be developed, but you'll need a level of training as well. Not only to understand what it can do, but also what it can't do. Relationships between staff and patients is something really specific for the healthcare element, but you need to be able to understand how then relationships need to be considered. So will the use of AI make staff more remote from the patient, and or will it create a level of almost a barrier between them when you don't have that level of decision making or that level of whatever happening as close as it is at the moment? And then fundamentally, I think we mentioned this for ethical issues. There's a whole bunch of ethical issues around where the data comes from, how the data is used, the algorithms, as we mentioned before, how they are developed and the level of bias that they have in between them. So there's a whole lot of stuff there, and making sure that fundamentally in healthcare, that what they talk about is minimizing harm. And I think that I can't think of a sector where that wouldn't be relevant. So I thought it was just useful just to rattle through them, and because I think most of them are relevant to other instantiations of AI as well. I can't think of anything that wouldn't. Can you, Nick?
No. I mean, like I'm looking at this article from a lot of different perspectives, right? There's obviously I've been tooting the horn of we need some sort of government regulation on the ethical use of AI technology in our everyday lives, right? And I think this kind of goes along the same lines of what you were saying there at the end, is about the ethical issues. And let's talk about ethical considerations when it comes to the use of AI, because I think the more we get into, like you said earlier, this Pandora's box that we've opened, it's going to be harder and harder to close it. So how do you solve the problem of these technologies already using people's likeness without their consent? Well, you punish it, but there's how do you it shouldn't be around in the first place. But now that box is open, and people are probably using it in their workflows, right? Like you have Disney who's using deepfake of Mark Hamill in The Mandalorian.
Mm-hmm.
Spoilers for you know, a couple seasons old. But you have that technology being used in entertainment. But that same technology is being used by malicious actors. And you also have people who have been using the deepfake voices, right? And this is a big one that I want to talk about, because I use it for genuine, not malicious purposes. I've made a joke that I've had Barry say some really nice things about me working with me on the show, and Blake too. But the reason that I have that technology is so that way I don't, if Barry messed up a line or something just didn't come through clear enough when he's reading a Human Factors Minute, I can go in and retype that sentence up 5 times, have him say it 5 different ways, and then pick the best cut to intersplice with the rest of his actual live read that makes it sound more complete. And it's something that I can do without having to go to Barry and say, "Hey, can you re-record that?" It just was,
Mm-hmm.
if it was on the wrong mic, I might do it, but because that's a problem that we've had, Barry. But
Okay, that's not the first time.
you, with that same technology that I just described, having a very legitimate use case, you have other people calling grandma saying, "Hey, I'm in prison and I need help.
Mm-hmm.
Can you bail me out? Send the money to this Walmart gift card." Like, that is what people are doing. And because it sounds like the person. And hey, Barry, by the way, I don't know if you know this, but we have a ton of audio samples out there on the internet.
Yep.
So anyone in my family, if unless it's from my number, don't, or unless I can prove it without a reasonable doubt that it is me, ask me some personal questions to verify. I think that's, that is a dangerous technology that's out there, right? And it blows my mind that we haven't that our progress with some things are so slow when the threat of these things is so real. And it it can be this article can be looked at from an alarmist perspective, and I think it is in a lot of ways. But basically, the whole point that I'm trying to make here is that this AI technology has had a lot of positive impact, but we need some way to mitigate that negative impact that it will have for culture and society. And we need to do that ethically, and we need to do that now.
So I would, I don't know. I would almost counter it with you in terms of what it, in terms of law, in terms of creating some stuff there. What is it actually saying? And the reason I say that is a lot of the stuff that we've mentioned, it's about how people use it. And you know, if we have something of good, people are always going to find something bad to do with it. Um, but when we come to creating law, when we come to create this sort of stuff, you need to be able to articulate what it is that you're legislating against, what the measures are, what the implications are, etc., etc. And I don't think that in either of our governing legislatures, we have the right sort of people who understand this stuff in order to be able to legislate effectively against what it is that we want them to legislate against. Because right now, I don't know what it is that we're legislating against, really. Apart from gross statements saying, don't be bad with it. One person, I mean, you've laid a very good example of we don't want anybody deep faking us, but we can deep fake each other because that's really useful.
Right.
But if you start, if the legislation would have to turn around and say, don't deep fake, and therefore is that has then cut into the useful aspects of it, because actually how many people are truly deep faking, and the ones who are using it in a malicious way, well, they don't care about the law in the first place, so it hasn't it doesn't cut that bit out.
Barry,
So
I got it. I got it. Here's what we
oh,
do. We make an AI that
mhm.
basically writes an argument for why it is, or for what it is that we want to legislate against. And then we use an AI system in a judicial setting to determine a ruling on that case. And then we get an AI to write up a bill that will, take that ruling and present it to a bunch of representatives and senators, and then um, we turn it into law. That's how it works. That's a simple solution. See, we got it. We did it.
Right, I'm just doing that right now. Hold on a second.
Okay, yeah, yeah. I figured you were.
Let's do that.
Um,
It's,
but you're right. You're right. There. I mean, I guess my call is specifically for people to understand what it is that this technology can do, and to it is you're right in the sense of don't do this thing is the easy way to patch it, but there's also another easy way to patch it. Don't commit hate crimes with this thing. Don't commit crime with this thing. Don't do things that are going to hurt other people because of this thing. And
but
that
then if you take out of your
but
sentences just there with this thing, then that would just be a lot easier. If we just ask people not to commit crime whatsoever.
yeah, exactly. But then
Just a minute.
but look, here's the difference, Barry, is that if you have it written somewhere, it's easier to put up a case for when it does go in the bad direction. That's all I'm saying.
That's true.
Like we
No,
did, we have nothing right now. Nothing. They're still talking to Facebook. Like
it's true.
something that's not been relevant for a while, right? So like, at least among younger generations, it just doesn't matter. So like, here's the thing is that's where their mind's at. And it should just be like, make a blanket statement for now. Doing this stuff is
Well,
bad. Doing stuff that hurts other people is bad. Okay. Don't do it with this
that's not,
technology. And then we'll determine what those specific things are later. But yeah,
yeah, that's not the way the law works. Um,
no.
but according to my learned friend that I've just asked about this,
Oh,
apparently we have to define what deepfake audio actually is. So fundamentally get that bit right, and then prohibit the creation and distribution of it. Now it actually thought about this because actually, if we wanted to do it, is if we give explicit consent, then that's fine. But it's the either implicit or no consent that makes it illegal. Then we need to impose some penalties. Establish some methods for detection and enforcement. Provide some exceptions. So such as those who are using it for educational research or artistic purposes, which is what I think we are. And then we're going to educate the public, which is what we're doing right now. So
Right.
we're doing half it already.
Yeah. Well, I think I have to go back and look at the document that you signed when you were first a guest on this show, but I'm pretty sure it said that I could use your likeness in things. But I mean, that's the the explicit consent, and
Yep.
that's the thing that like that makes sense, right? You've given me permission to use your voice in the production, and it's again just to do pickup stuff. It's not like I'm going to generate an entire thing for you and put you out of work. Like this technology might be used for voice actors, right? I can imagine a world where um, you have like voice actors or something. And, like I can imagine it being used in a very similar way right now. Like, not replacing voice actors, but in the sense that it's a pickup when you can't get that voice actor in the studio or to send over a couple lines, and it will just increase the production speed at which you can do stuff, because then it's no longer dependent on scheduling. You could have them say it in 5 different ways, right? I mean, like I could have I don't know, I could make myself say welcome to Human Factors Cast 10 different ways, and I'm going to do that right now just as a an example. But I think that's what we're looking at here is using it in ways that hopefully won't hurt people. Hopefully those voice actors will still get paid. But again, using the technology in ways that is not intended, that is like
I
how
mean,
do you
well,
define that line? And you're absolutely right.
I mean, I guess that an interesting one would be that just made me think was there's a greater amount of animated content out there now. So more movies that are made out of pure animation, etc., etc. Why do you need to hire actors to voice them anymore when you could just use AI to to voice them? That will give the production companies that are making them films a lot more freedom to be able to do what they want and at the times that they want and at the speed of what they want as well. Um, that could be interesting.
Yeah,
So
no, you're right. You're right. I
apologies
mean,
to all the directors.
yeah, yeah, you're right. Now, I did promise that I would make myself say, "Welcome to Factors Cast. My name is Nick Rome," a couple times, and so that way I don't disappoint. Here you go. Here it is. Welcome to Human Factors Cast. My name is Nick Rome. Welcome to Human Factors Cast. My name is Nick Rome. Welcome to Human Factors Cast. My name is Nick Rome. Welcome to Human Factors Cast. My name is Nick Rome. Welcome to Human Factors Cast. My name is Nick Rome. I haven't hit puberty yet, apparently.
I was going to say
But
it's
I mean,
easy.
you
I
could
was
like
going to say it's easy.
I could do it with Barry too, just while we're at it. Why not? But I mean, you can tell like that's based off one sample of
Yep.
something that I recorded
Welcome
years
to
ago.
Human Factors Cast. My name is Nick Rome. Welcome to Human Factors Cast. My name is Nick Rome. Welcome to Human Factors Cast. My name is Nick Rome. Welcome to Human Factors Cast. My name is Nick Rome. Welcome to Human Factors Cast. My name is Nick Rome.
All right, that's enough of that.
13.
Jeez,
and I'm not Nick
that's
Rome,
what happens when you. Yeah. My goodness, what a fun piece of tech.
Yeah.
But I mean, you can see where that threat is, and you can see where, um, yeah, Alex in the chat. I hate all of that. Yeah, me too. I need to put more voice samples in my sample so it sounds more like me. All right, Barry. We've talked a lot about this, and I've touched like none of the notes that I wanted to. What are your final thoughts here on this article as we move into the next part of the show?
I think I just almost hit with what I said right at the beginning. I think the Pandora's box, the lid's off. There is a lot of stuff that this can do. Yes, as with any other technologies, then we need to apply a level of caution. We need to be doing this with an eyes wide open approach. But I also think that it's exciting. I think it's what a time to be alive to see this level of technology that is. It's not so much. I mean, AI in of itself has been around for a long time now, comparatively, but it's accessible now. It's accessible in a way that is you and me, non-experts, non-true experts in the field, can actually utilize it and make some significant benefit out of it.
Yeah, for me, it's let's think about the ethics of this technology. not just from a law perspective, as a society perspective, and what that means for people and how to integrate with this technology successfully. Like I said, a lot of good can come from this technology, and we've used it in many different ways on the show. In fact, in some really positive ways, I think. And just, I guess the last piece here is thinking about educating others and training others to understand when something is written by an AI or generated by an AI. It's fairly easy for those who know what to look for in terms of sentence structure and patterns. You can almost tell if something was written by an AI without a detector. Um, and then to understand that this technology is available for people to use, and so that way, if anyone does call grandma, they know it's not me because they know what to listen for. My voice doesn't crack like that when I say my name is Nick Rowe. Like, that's, although I just did. So, that's I guess my final take on this is, let's get some education and training out there for folks to know that this technology exists, because it's hitting mainstream now. All right. Well, thank you to our patrons and all of you for this week for selecting our topic. And thank you to our friends over at Gizmodo for our news story this week. If you want to follow along, we do post the links to all the original articles, weekly roundups on our blog. You can also join us on Discord for more discussion on these stories and much more. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back to see what's going on in the human factors community right after this. Are you tired of boring lectures and textbooks on human factors and UX? Well, grab your headphones and get ready for a wild ride with the Human Factors Minute podcast. Each minute is like a mini crash course packed with valuable insights and information on various organizations, conferences, usability methods, theories, models, certifications, tools, and much more. We'll take you on a journey through the fascinating world of human factors, from the ancient history to the latest trends and developments. Listen in as we explore the field and discover new ways to enhance the user experience. From the Think Aloud protocol to the critical incident technique, focus groups, iterative design, we'll make sure that you're the smartest person in the room. Tune in on the 10th, the 20th, and the last day of every month for a new and interesting tidbit related to human factors. Don't miss out on the Human Factors Minute podcast, your ultimate source for all things human factors.
Human Factors Cast brings you the best in human factors news, interviews, conference coverage, and overall fun conversations into each and every episode we produce. But we can't do it without you. The Human Factors Cast network is 100% listener supported. All the funds that go into running the show come from our listeners. Our patrons are our priority, and we want to ensure we're giving back to you for supporting us. Pledges start at just $1 per month and include rewards like access to our weekly Q&As with the hosts, personalized professional reviews, and Human Factors Minute, a Patreon-only weekly podcast where the hosts break down unique, obscure, and interesting human factors topics in just 1 minute. Patreon rewards are always evolving, so stop by patreon.com/humanfactorscast to see what support level may be right for you. Thank you, and remember, it depends.
Yes, huge thank you as always to our patrons. We especially want to thank our Human Factors Cast All Access patron, Michelle Tripp. Patrons like you truly keep the show going. Like I mentioned at the top, a buck gets you in the door, gets you access to a bunch of great stuff. And you know what? I think we're going to try something different in the middle of the show because no one listens to this. So why not just read this dumb ad, right? Hey, you know what's hotter than a fresh mic? The merch store for our podcast. That's right, folks. We have a merch store filled with some of the coolest designs you've ever seen. I'm not just talking about any old t-shirts here. We got designs that are so witty and quirky, you'll be the envy of all your friends. Like our the complete wrong shirt that I grabbed. Like our It Depends shirts, perfect for those moments when you just can't make up your mind. Speaking of making up your mind, have you seen our show logo shirts? Like the one I'm holding up right now? And let me tell you, it's the ultimate fashion statement. You'll be the talk of the town when you sport this bad boy. Barry's dying. But wait, there's more. We also got designs based on human factors culture. That's right, folks. It's not just a podcast. We're a culture. And if you want to be a part of it, then you need to check out our... Now, I know what you're thinking, but host, I already... But Nick, I already support the show by listening. And to that I say, why not support the show and look good doing it? Trust me, your wardrobe will thank you. So head on over to our merch store and let's make some magic happen. Just don't blame me when you become the most popular person in your social circle. Wow, that was dumb. All right. Well, yeah, anyway.
It came from. It came from.
Try skipping over those now. Come for the embarrassment. All right. Yes, it is time for It Came From. This is where we scour the depths of the internet to bring you the most buzzworthy topics that are currently making the waves in the community. If you find any of these answers useful, give us a like to help other people find this content, or even if you like that terrible ad read. All right. Our first one tonight is from CTrain4997 on the UXResearch subreddit. They write, will AI replace the need for UX researchers? Do we need to become generalists to stay relevant and hired, or shift focus from qualitative to quantitative? Will AI reduce the need for UX research? What are your predictions? Barry, what are your predictions on this?
Yes, but no.
Explain.
Do I have to? I put a lot of
That's the whole point.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, I think our job changes. I think our job evolves. I think the note about saying about becoming generalists is possibly more true because we're going to be able to do a lot more types of analysis or a lot more research using AI tools. So I think it is going. A lot of I guess the harder work, the sluggish type work might disappear. We can get AI to do that, and it's almost like we said in the main article, the stuff that that doesn't actually require that much inspiration behind it. The stuff that is just gathering stuff, analyzing stuff. We might be able to do that quicker and better and faster, allowing you to really unleash why a human is in the loop of all of this is because of the insights that we can bring. So I go back to yes, it'll change. But no, I don't think we need to worry too much about our roles to stay relevant because all we've done is change the question. Nick, what do you think?
Nah, man. No. I mean, look, there's a whole technical group devoted to human AI robot teaming. There's going to be a need for humans to design for how we integrate with technology, no matter what it is. And I think in terms of AI replacing us, no, we need to team with it. It can augment the research process. Like you said, like there's various tasks that it can do to help speed it along. Like, I don't know, analyzing a transcript or something. It can pull out some key quotes, but like stuff that maybe you would have missed otherwise because it's a big long interview. And I think there's some real value in that type of thing. Being able to quickly perform, word clouds of which words were said the most often, who was talking the most often. All of that stuff exists now, right? Like in the technology. And I think I use some of those tools just in terms of understanding who was dominating the conversation and maybe who was more softer spoken in terms of, okay, well, maybe I want to, circle in on some of the stuff that they were saying. It's there. Just learn to work with it. Will it replace us? No. It might be useful to become a generalist, to broaden your skill set, and to be able to work with various types of technology, increase your versatility a little bit. But I don't think it's going to replace us entirely. Not yet. Anyway. There's actually a really cool chart out there, and I wish I had it to reference, but it was kind of illustrating when various jobs will be fully replaced by artificial intelligence. We're a long way out. Don't worry about it. All right, let's get into this next one. Asking for a raise 60 days in. This is by Maddie Light on the Human Factors subreddit. They say, I started at a consulting firm 60 days ago and things are going well, but my workload has increased significantly. Despite receiving a good sign-on bonus, I feel taken advantage of and want to ask for a pay increase. I'm unsure how my supervisors will react. Any advice?
Well, my gut feel is, I mean, you're 2 months in. You've got your foot under the door, that type of thing. Part of me says suck it up, buttercup, because it depends on that workload, really. Has that workload significantly increased and you can see it going on for a long time, or is it increased and it is just going on a you're on a blip. If you really think, and you think you've within 2 months the pay that you negotiated was too low for what you're doing, then absolutely you're within your right to go and say you want an increase. I can tell you how your supervisors will more than likely react, which will either be, if they're going to do it nice and say, well, why don't you wait another couple of months? Because really, asking for a pay rise within 6 months, I would suggest, unless it's significantly out, then somebody didn't do the due diligence on one side or the other, then I think you would struggle to justify that. I've been on the side of the supervisor, and in a sort of similar situation. I don't think it wasn't a workload issue, but somebody just tried to take advantage, and let's say it didn't go down well. Nick, what do you think? Would you go and be asking for the pay rise?
Look, I mean, here's how I feel about it. There's some cases where perhaps you want to be a good new employee and you take on more and more things that maybe you can't handle within your role. I'm not saying that's what's happening here, because it sounds like they genuinely enjoy the work. And I think ultimately what we're looking at here is are you getting paid fairly compared to industry? Is it do your research there. You asked for a certain amount when you started, and that's some of the other context of this question that I didn't read, but they asked for a certain amount when they started and they didn't quite get that amount, and now they're trying to get that amount based on the amount of work doing. That should have stayed in the negotiation phase, I think. Now, if the roles and responsibilities are vastly different than what you signed on for, I think that is fair for you to bring that to the table and say, hey, look, we've just saying it like it is. The roles and responsibilities that we talked about that were listed in the job description are not the things that I am performing. I am performing things that are, compared to another to another position in industry. That is what I'm doing, and therefore I think I should fairly be compensated for it. I think that's reasonable. Take a proactive approach, though. Also, when it comes to your workload, work-life balance. There's some other things in this question that, like getting Teams messages at 8 p.m. Don't respond to them. Like if you're not on at 8, don't respond to them. Don't feel like you need to respond to things at 8, and push back against some of those boundaries. I think that's some of my advice. I don't know. All right, one last one here. Let's get into this. I'm starting to lose my way as a researcher. This is by uxanonymous on the UXResearch subreddit. As the sole UX researcher in a young organization, my manager, a designer, and his manager, a product manager, both influence my research. Product managers run their own research, and some designers do their own research with a few users. I don't know how to handle this situation. So I don't want to be redundant, but I also don't want to feel undervalued. Barry, how do you approach something like this?
I think we've had similar to this before. Talk to people. If you're feeling that way, that what looks like quite a relatively small team, and yet you've got different people doing elements of your role, you've got to ask yourself the question first: why are they doing that? Is it because they're using people that they know and therefore can have a good relationship with them? Is it because that's just the way they've always done things, and maybe you're new into the organization, they don't realize what your capability is? But fundamentally, talk to them. Try and set some boundaries. Try and set some get an understanding from them about why because they might not realize that the way that they're making you feel as well. They might think they're doing you a favor. So yeah, have a chat and sort it out fundamentally. Yeah, I've got nothing better than that. Just break down the boundaries.
Barry's advice, interpersonal skills. And I mean, yeah, I mean, that is a lot of it, right? I think establishing clear roles, responsibilities across the team, who is responsible for what, can certainly help out here, especially if it is a fairly new organization. I think you can definitely, establish those boundaries and say, no, I do the research. You guys can assist with the way in which we conduct research by generating questions and giving them to me, so that way I can phrase them free of bias, that type of thing, right? So, I mean, there's ways in which you can establish those expectations and guidelines for how it should be conducted internally with you and your team, and how your research being done effectively can support their efforts. And I think that's an important framing for this question. Make sure that they know what's in it for them, because they might think that they're doing research, but if they're not doing research in a way that's actually getting the results that they're looking for, or they're not interpreting it in the right way because it hasn't gone through a researcher first, then I think that's where you can provide that sort of perspective and value and say, look at what I've done. And like Barry said, building those relationships with those other folks. Your job isn't just to interface with users. It's also to be a communicator internally across teams. Make sure that the people who are getting the results of this research are understanding what you're communicating. And to do that, rapport is really important across multiple, different stakeholders. So that's what I got. Okay. It's time for the show. It's just one more thing. Barry, what's your one more thing this week?
So today's been one of those days, and I think I might have, I don't know whether I've hinted this to you, but I've had a really long day today, about 15 hours and counting. So part of that was because I got invited to be part of a community panel at one of our local universities, at Swansea University, where they've been developing, so their AI, basically they've got a whole bunch of students who are learning AI, and PhD students who are developing AI-based projects. Part of what they do is then say, well, you can take part in a community project where you give up basically a 20% of your time and invest that into a community project of kind of your choice, grow as a team, etc. But see how you can use AI for good. And what I liked about the whole approach is it's developing AI, but from a user-centered approach. So they're actually going in and saying, right, well, what are the community problems first? And then they basically, what I went to was a whole presentation of about, I think it was 8 to 10 different projects. Some are about 6 months in, some of them are right at the beginning, and it was just brilliant because there was some things there about one team was doing a whole bunch of stuff around music that had been generated within the city historically, and they wanted to create a almost a website that catalogs all of this, but gives you a really in-depth experience, also using QR codes in the actual city itself, which is fab. And then also through to educational tools for biodiversity, recognizing plants and what they do, what the impacts are, and etc. And then being able to log them and stuff like that. So really fantastic evening, good couple of hours. Listen to some really, really super motivated students using AI for community good. What more can you want of an evening?
That's awesome. I'm actually really jealous that you got to experience that, because it really ties in nicely with our topic this week. I think it's good to see. It's good to see. My one more thing this week is I'm going to pick this one because it's been on here for a couple weeks. The Last of Us. I don't know if you've been watching this, Barry.
I've only watched the first couple of episodes so far, so no spoilers.
I won't. It's just a thing where we are really looking forward to disappointment every week, and heartbreak, I should say, too. It's not disappointment in the sense of like the show is bad. The show is fantastic. It's just one of those things where it's like, my wife and I are sitting there all day Sunday preparing. We're like, okay, you ready for the heartbreak, and you ready for it? Deep breaths. So I don't know. I find it fascinating that a piece of media can be so challenging emotionally, and that you're looking forward to it on a weekly basis. If that makes sense. I don't know. It's just amazing what some of that media can do. So with that being said, that's it for today, everyone. If you like this episode and enjoy some of the discussion about AI, some of its applications, I'll encourage you to go listen to episode 268. It's our ChatGPT episode and how it exemplifies chatbot UX. Comment wherever you're listening with what you think of the story this week. For more in-depth discussion, you can always join us on our Discord community. Visit our official website. and stay up to date with all the latest news, Discord community, all that stuff. Wow, I've really lost the train of thought here. If you like what you hear, you want to support the show, there's a couple ways that you can do that. One, you can leave us a 5-star review. You can do that wherever you're listening right now. Stop and just give us a 5-star review. We love those. We love those. Two, you can always tell your friends about us. Word of mouth is really how we grow. So if you liked what we talked about tonight and think others might find value in this conversation too, let them know. Three, if you have at least $1, you can support us on Patreon and get access to a bunch of really cool stuff, like I've been mentioning throughout the show tonight. So it's like I haven't done an outro in weeks, Barry. As always, links to all of our socials and our website are in the description of this episode. Mr. Barry Kirby, thank you for being on the show today. Where can our listeners go and find you if they want to talk about how to prompt ChatGPT to write up ethical guidelines for AI?
Well, if you want to go and talk to me about stuff like that, well, you go to ChatGPT and type it in and see what it comes out with. But fundamentally, you can find me on Twitter at Baz_K. Or if you want to listen to some interviews with influential human factors practitioners and associated people, then find me at 1202, the Human Factors Podcast at 1202podcast.com.
As for me, I've been your host, Nick Rome. You can find me on our Discord and across social media at Nick_Rome. Thanks again for tuning into Human Factors Cast. Until next time,